Welcome to New York. I'm walking along the bridge to Randall's Island, a place that many New Yorkers never even go to, but it's become the center of the migrant controversy in not just New York, but the entire United States. I'm about to go and talk to some people and see what's going on. I have one skill that normally is fairly useless, which is that I can speak a bunch of different languages. Not able to hire a translator, gonna have to go and do this myself. Excuse me, are you guys busy right now? You going to work?
Huh?
Are you busy? You speak English? I'm making a video about the situation. I want to talk to some people. No English? Where are you from?
Africa. Guinea.
New Guinea?
Guinea, yes.
Vous parlez français?
Oui.
Ah, ok. Ça fait combien de temps que vous êtes ici?
Ici, on a un mois, juste un mois.
Juste un mois? Et c'est possible de rentrer comme un visiteur? Oh, il faut avoir comme une carte d'identité.
Une autorisation pour rentrer dedans.
Ah, c'est ça?
Mais s'il y a un ID pour ceux qui sont dedans, quoi.
Ah, ok.
Ils ont une carte, quoi. Là, on scanne pour rentrer.
Carte? Ah, c'est ça. Et
ID.
Oh, comme ça, ok. Guess that ID. Okay. All right, merci pour l'information. Bye. All right, so those guys were from a country called Guinea in West Africa. Finally putting the French skills to use here. A lot of Americans probably think learning French is only good for going to France and eating croissants or something, but it's actually one of the most spoken languages in the world. It's spoken all over Africa. So this is Randall's Island. Randall's Island, I think, typically doesn't have any residents. There's a bunch of like soccer fields, baseball fields. I think there's like a wastewater plant or something like that. But what started to happen last year was they built the largest migrant shelter in the entire city here. And it's now filled clearly to capacity. Thanks to the absolute shit show that is American politics, migrants that arrived at the US border in Texas were sent on buses all the way to New York City. Many ended up at the migrant camp that was constructed on Randall's Island. But in recent months, things have been getting ugly. There's been stories of violence, even murder inside the camp. And with the migrants, well, at least a few sociopaths now getting so brazen to attack the police, public opinion is really souring on the situation. Who is the security? The police or who?
No, not the police. The ones at the gate. She's good. You see this girl?
Oh, that girl over there.
This one,
Okay.
she's a small
The entrance is like over here? Okay. Like down there and then come back?
Yeah, let's say you can jump over.
I just jump over here. Where do you guys come from, if you don't mind me asking?
Different type of places.
Okay, I've traveled a lot in Africa. Are you guys from Africa?
Yeah, we are.
Which part?
Guinea, Senegal, Mali.
Okay. So la plupart des Africains ici sont des francophones. Okay. Il n'y a pas de Nigériens ou des trucs comme ça?
Nigériens, c'est un so.
Il y a des Nigériens
Tout le
aussi?
monde qui est là.
Okay. I'm going to talk with her. How'd your English get so good? Study a lot. Okay. Don't go far in America with that. Yeah. Hi, excuse me. They told me you're the security here.
Yes.
I'm just a simple YouTuber. I was wondering if it's possible to film the camp a little bit, show what it's like inside.
Sorry, no.
No?
Yeah.
Is there a way I could get some kind of permit to do that, or?
Even the permit, not allowed to record.
Okay. I see. All right, so there's apparently no way in the front door. And they can't bring visitors into the camp. So we'll just have to talk to the people walking back and forth. But man, there are a lot of people walking back and forth. Hey, 你们是中国人吗？对啊 ，OK， 你们住在这里吗？哦 ，OK， 我做一个支持移民的视频，这样子。你们在这里有多久啊？
你采访我们有报酬吗？
不会有什么问题，因为
不是你采访我们，
对
我们会得到什么报酬？
啊，这是什 什么报销？
那为什么要浪费我们的时间呢？
好吧，好吧。All right, buddy. Looked like your girlfriend was ready to have an interview, but.
¿Me podría ayudar a empujar un poquito?
Sí, sí, sí.
Hasta aquí nada más, porfa.
Está bien.
De atrás nomás.
Ok.
Atrás, atrás.
Atrás.
Sino que como
Ok.
el carro
Vamos.
pesa más.
Sí.
¿Usted es periodista?
Ah, YouTuber.
Ah, YouTube.
Sí, sí. No.
Yo
Yo soy
sí
buena
me
persona.
estoy quedando aquí.
Ah, ok. ¿Hace cuánto tiempo?
Ya un mes.
¿Un mes? Ah, ok. La mayoría de la gente aquí es un mes nada más, ¿no?
No. Yo me pienso ir ya si Dios quiere, la otra semana porque acá es muy feo.
Ah, es muy feo adentro.
Es feo por lo que todas las camas están así, juntas, la comida. Pero la mayoría acá tiene tiempo y la mayoría son venezolanos y ni uno trabaja.
Ah, ok.
Bueno, mi pareja y yo somos peruanos.
¿Vos no sos venezolano?
No, yo no.
¿Sos de cuál país?
Perú.
Perú. Ah, bueno, Perú.
Sí, de
¿Y,
Perú.
y tuviste que cruzar el Darién para llegar aquí?
Yo no crucé el Darién. Los peruanos van hasta México, la mayoría, y de México Juárez, y de Juárez cruzas
Ok.
y llegas.
Perdón. ¿Ustedes están ocupados?
¿Qué pasa?
Ah, estoy haciendo un video sobre los inmigrantes que están viniendo a Nueva York. ¿Ustedes son inmigrantes?
Sí.
¿De dónde? ¿Venezuela? Oh, ok.
Ecuador.
Ecuador.
¿De qué país?
From.
De aquí.
¿Tú naciste en
América.
Estados
Sí,
Unidos?
sí, sí. Soy de Nueva York.
Pero aprendiste
habla
inglés
español.
¿cómo?
Es que viví en Argentina 2 años.
Ok.
Por eso, sí.
¿En qué año viviste en Argentina?
Hace 12 años.
Ok. Yo empiezo
Sí.
esta conversación de por qué estamos aquí.
Tú me estás grabando, no me
Pero sí,
grabes. Yo
sí,
sí, ya
pero
sabes,
está
estás
bien.
grabando.
Pero está bien, quiero que me grabe.
Ok.
Yo quiero que él me grabó. En particular estamos aquí por una crisis política
Sí.
que degeneró en violencia y en crisis y colapso económico de mi país. O digamos electricidad, plomería, carpintería, barbería y además el idioma. Todas estas personas serían de un mejor provecho para este país y esta sociedad. Pero sé que en cualquier momento llegará el tiempo en que sí se ayude a la persona con estudios y tramitarse para un mejor trabajo y un mejor beneficio para este país. Yo espero que así sea.
Bravo, bravo,
Muchos-
bravo, bravo.
Muchos saben que la situación en Venezuela va muy mal, entonces yo entiendo, apoyo.
Americano de familia.
Ojalá que hablara ruso, pero,
Oh, pero tú
todavía
eres
no.
de familia americano, pero como-
Americano
Como
puro,
de todo.
digamos, sí.
Digamos.
Bueno, de Irlanda,
de Irlanda, ok.
Alemania. ¿Ustedes acaban de
Sí,
llegar o?
vamos llegando. vamos llegando.
Bueno,
¿Tú hablas?
Una foto aquí.
sí,
¿Tú
sí,
hablas
ok.
español?
Sí.
¿Tú hablas español
Ahí mira, mira. No.
con acento
Ven que
argentino?
nos va a tomar una foto.
Más o menos. No ruso. All right. So as you may have noticed, it's really hard to talk to people here. Understandably, nobody really wants to be on camera. I have to convince them. So I'm really proud of the people that actually did talk to me and shared their stories. And I've gotten the understanding that most people here, they're here for at most a month. I met a few people, like the Chinese couple, the Africans, have been here for a month. And you also have people that are literally arriving now. There's constant traffic over that blue bridge over there, the bridge that leads to Randall's Island. People arriving, people going off to work, which is interesting because I believe they're not legally allowed to work, but I mean, hey, this is America. We thrive on illegal immigrant labor.
Si Dios quiere, ya en una semana me voy porque sí, es de verdad bien feo para mí.
¿Hay violencia adentro
Sí.
de vez en cuando?
Sí, también se pelea la gente,
Ah, ok.
las parejas.
Ah, bueno, sí, sí. Se
Sí.
escucha en las noticias.
Y bueno, creo que en otros lados, bueno, no sé si será en otros lados, porque lo que es Venezuela es
Ah, bueno.
muy feo.
Ah, bueno.
Y la
So yeah, the funny thing about this whole situation is, if you go past the camp, basically at least 90% of the island is like this. It's actually very quiet. It's one of the quietest places in New York City. And you would have no idea there's a giant migrant camp, or violence, apparently, is breaking out every other night. The camp is flanked on all sides by New York police cars. Of course, many people watching this will wonder what the police are actually going to do if something happens. There's a very famous video floating around where everyone in the camp rose up and brawled with the police, and then nothing really happened afterward. And it's really bizarre because, you know, especially I think if you watch my videos, you can recognize that most of the migrants are probably normal people that just want to work. But I'm sure there's also some sociopaths among them as well. And when they cause trouble, you gotta arrest them. Now I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that the topic of immigration in America is very heated. In fact, it's probably the most heated topic in the country at the moment. The problem is, you can't trust the media. Every source of media seems to have some kind of bias. They're on the right, they're on the left, and everything gets filtered through that bias. Now, as someone who does not identify himself as either a Republican or a Democrat, this situation is very annoying. And that's why I'm very happy that today's sponsor is Ground News. Ground News' app and website gathers news articles from around the US and even the world in one place, and it shows you where they lie on the political spectrum. It adds context. It even shows you who is funding each source. Let's take a look at this story about the city's lawsuit against the bus companies sending migrants. It's very interesting to see the different headlines that each source are giving to the story, where a single word or phrase can influence public opinion.
For example, this left-leaning headline quotes the mayor as saying, "They acted with evil intent," whereas this more centrist publication says that they are asylum seekers.
In today's world, it's way too easy to get caught up in manipulative algorithms that control public opinion. They just reinforce your own biases. And that's why I think what Ground News is doing is important. And I'm not just saying that. I use it myself as a source of news. You can get 30% off by using my link, or try it for just $1 this month. The link is in the description. Alright, so that was the biggest migrant shelter in New York City. Not that easy to talk to people in there. And they don't really like cameras snooping around. Why don't we go somewhere else? Why don't we go to some of the more established immigrant neighborhoods? Why don't we go to the neighborhoods where Senegalese, Colombians, Mexicans, Dominicans, Chinese have been living in for 10 years, 20 years, decades. It's like looking into the future. Let's go see how those neighborhoods are. Show you something that actually doesn't have anything to do with immigration, but it pisses me off. You know, I say this with no exaggeration. I've literally traveled around the world at this point. New York has the dirtiest, most threatening looking subway in the entire world. It's ridiculous. Richest city in the world, and look at this. The stations all look like they're from 100 years ago, and they haven't been renovated since then. And that's actually true. The stations were first designed in the 1910s, and now, because of mismanagement over the decades, it would actually cost more money to fix the tracks, to make them better, than it would be to just tear up the whole system and start over. The thing I don't get is, why can't they at least touch up the stations? Make them look less like a place you're gonna get shot. Whereas, hello. And, but if some And then you step in here, and this is Grand Central Station. Here you find trains that take you upstate or to Long Island. And have you noticed how much the atmosphere has changed? Look at this. In here, all of a sudden, you've got platforms made out of marble. You've got a fully modern schedule over here on the screen. This actually looks like a first world country train station. And for some reason on these trains, the whole system is different. You have to show your ticket while you're on board. They check it. There's different rates depending on where you're going. But again, this is all owned by the same company, the Metro Transit Authority of New York. The problem with all this is that the migrant crisis is costing the city of New York not millions of dollars, but billions of dollars. And then people who live here pay extremely high taxes, pay insane rent prices. They're wondering, what is all the money going towards? Going to Queens. Gotta hop on the 7 train. In New York City, most of the quote-unquote Latino neighborhoods are actually just Dominican neighborhoods with some Puerto Ricans thrown in. But in Corona, you got everybody else. People from Colombia, Mexico, Central America, and probably also Venezuelans.
All without transfer.
Gracias. ¿En dónde es usted? ¿De México? Ah, ok. ¿De qué parte? La ciudad. Ah, ok. ¿Hace mucho tiempo que estás hasta aquí? Ah, mucho. Ok, gracias. Got some of my favorite food right here. Win and roll. Those are amazing. As a New Yorker, more or less, from Long Island, I can tell you, you should not trust the quality of Mexican food anywhere except for in this neighborhood. So this sign is saying that it has rooms for rent. Interestingly, right here it says no papers, as in you don't need to show any documents. But I don't think this is for migrants that have just arrived in the country. These are very cheap by New York standards, but still a little bit out of the price range of most migrants. $750, $850, up to $900. It's not bad for one room in this overpriced city. Might just move out here myself. This is obviously a very immigrant-heavy neighborhood. But the people here, most of them, have been here for longer periods of time. Just like the lady at the taco truck, she's been here for 30 years. Oh damn, maybe I went to the wrong taco truck. Right here we got the Carnitas Tommy. This street in Corona has a bit of an infamous reputation. I'll leave that to your imagination. This travel agency is advertising all the countries you can send money back to. Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. Of course, Mexico. Mexico gets their own sign. What was interesting was that at the migrant camp, we didn't meet anybody from Mexico or anybody from Central America. Granted, a lot of the Central Americans and Mexicans prefer to go to California or Texas, but the rates of migration from those countries are dropping like a rock. Many people don't know this, but the birth rate in Mexico is almost as low as it is in the US now. Mexicans barely come to the US. Where are you from? Et comment tu vends des choses si les gens ici parlent pas l'anglais? Ah, d'accord. Difficile? Ça fait longtemps que tu es ici? 3 mois. Ok. Bonne chance. I don't know why, but a Senegalese dude coming to the Mexican neighborhood to sell what are goods of mysterious origins. I don't know where those headphones came from. It's pretty funny. ¿Dónde son ustedes? ¿Perú? No. ¿Hace mucho tiempo que están aquí?
Recién, ¿dónde?
¿Todo esto es su tienda?
Los zapatos son de...
Oh, los zapatos son a lot of different random shit stores on this street. It's kind of wild. There's so many Latin American immigrants here that it literally feels like Latin America. These are the same kind of street side. Me estoy grabando a mí. No quiero ningún problema.
Solo respeto, a mí no me importa ninguna.
Le respeto, okay. Está bien. Alright, old man over there was trying to start a fight with me because I was accidentally filming his stuff that fell off a truck. Gotta keep in mind that Corona is kind of the hood. It's not the hood, but it's a little bit hood. Alright, now the interesting thing about this neighborhood, the interesting thing about Queens, is if you decide to go and walk that way, you'll eventually get to a neighborhood. You'll eventually get to a neighborhood called Jackson Heights, which is pretty, more or less, that's like Little India, Little Bangladesh. You'll feel like you're in South Asia. On the other hand, if you go in that direction, and again, this is all on the same street, you'll start to notice that more and more of the stores start to have their names in Chinese. And eventually, you'll get to the largest Chinatown outside of Asia, Flushing. The place I took you to before, but maybe we should go back again. And then right here in between the two neighborhoods is Citi Field, the Mets Stadium. The Mets are a baseball team if you're not American. You don't really need to know that either way. I don't know why the Mets exist, and I don't know why anyone follows them. We literally got the greatest team in the history of sports across town in the Bronx. But hey, some people, they'd rather drive a Prius than a Lambo. It's like we're in a different universe now. Welcome to Flushing. The reason I decided to come here this time is because, strangely, amongst all the other different groups that have been entering the US illegally over the past year, a small but notable portion of them have come from China. 这是纽约地铁吗？这是纽约地铁吗？
啊，地铁的，这中英文的，
但是有中国字。
有中国字里面呢，布鲁克林区。
OK。
啊，
我想买这个。
OK，斯坦丁岛。
没有人去那边。Nobody goes to Staten Island.
这面是曼哈顿的，啊，曼哈顿的曼哈顿区。
哦，这个是曼哈顿。
对，东村，East Village 啊，so 唐人街 Chinatown。
唐人街。比较小的中国城。
哦，还可以吧。
这里是最大的。
哦，对，这是最大的。
多少钱
4块。
4块。
The best price 。
3块这个。
没钱赚，真的没钱赚。
好好好。
中国的话叫穷书生啊。啊，这20啊。
对。我听说最近有好多中国人，他们离开中国，现在他们来这边，对吗？
不少。
不少。
这是15啊。
对。
是的。因为好像这个区呢就来的比较多一点。
对。
因为这是全国各地北方人都在这边，所以来的人多一点。
Oh, okay. Unlike some of the other immigrant groups, the Chinese that have come to the U.S., many of them already have money when they get here. Many are middle class or above. They don't have to go through this complicated route, going through the Darien Gap in South America, riding on trains in Mexico. No. Many can afford to sometimes just fly directly to the Mexican border, cross over, and then reach shelter somewhere in the US. Many are able to simply just get a regular visa and then fly over. Many are students. You could still earn way more money. The salaries are much higher here than they are in China. I love this sign for some reason. It says that it's selling non-slip restaurant shoes. And it even has in Spanish, zapatos que no resbalan para cocineros, which is not proper Spanish as far as I know. But you gotta respect the Chinese hustle. This sign is advertising various different kinds of weight loss for basically everyone. For children, got middle-aged weight loss. If you use their tactics, you can go from looking like this guy to looking like that guy, which is that even an improvement? I'm not sure. Here we go. On the day that I'm recording this, the creator of Dragon Ball Z, Akira Toriyama, passed away. Just came here to pay my respects. We can all be Super Saiyan. Spider-Man?
Yes.
Almost.
20.
20?
Yeah.
20 人民币可以。20 yuan 可以。
20元。对，它是20元。
20 yuan。
20。
人民币吗
？No。
开玩笑。
英镑可以吗？人民币不行。中国人会说英文不厉害，但是你会说中文你好厉害。
你在美国有多久？
没超过2年，5到2年。
到2年。
下个月就2年。
OK。最近有好多新的中国人来这边吗？我听说有好多他们来。
好像是疫情之后，就是大家都出来谋生吧。
啊。It is still wild to me how crowded this neighborhood gets. What I've learned walking through Flushing and trying to talk to people again is that I thought I was going to be surrounded by migrants everywhere I went in New York. People were messaging me saying, Tommy, you got to get back to New York. It's been flooded with immigrants. The place has completely changed. And honestly, not really. Flushing has always been like this. Corona is Corona. Hasn't changed much. In fact, it's actually really hard to find the migrants when you're walking around. That is, the ones that have just arrived within the last year. They live in all different kinds of places. It's a little too loud here to make a meaningful monologue. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to sound like a giant hippie here. You know, the US, it needs labor. It's the same old story. There's jobs that Americans won't do. The wages are too low. That's a problem in of itself. That should be changed. But until then, we need to bring in immigrants to keep the economy going. Do I think the system is perfect? No, I think it's messed up. Do I think the US is doing a good job on managing crime, keeping the city safe? No, not at all. But America was built on immigrants. All right, that's enough rambling. Let me go find some soup dumplings, some good Chinese food, and then we're gonna get over to Manhattan. I think we'll pick it back up tomorrow. See you then. All right, come with me on one last stop. This is Inwood in Uptown Manhattan. We probably won't find many of the migrants that have just arrived in the city over the past year here. But I think this neighborhood has an interesting story to share as well. I'll explain why. Let's go. Oh man, the weather has gotten so much better. Off camera, it has just been raining, it has been windy. This has just been a terrible week weather-wise. Didn't want to go outside. But now it's beautiful. For many people, especially the out-of-towners in New York, they would probably consider coming up into Upper Manhattan to be kind of dangerous. They'd view this as the hood. It's not that bad. Once you get to the South Bronx, that's when things get a little dicey.
Ahora tú vas a sentir de otra manera, gloria a Dios, porque el Espíritu Santo va a venir a morar sobre ti.
Hey, grábame, Recuerda que Cristo te ama, Cristo es la solución.
Oh, Cristo.
Cristo te ama, Cristo es la solución.
How you doing? I don't get it. Where's the camera? There's a basketball hoop. Finally able to dunk. I'm trying to figure out why they put that sign on that tree. Are people just pissing on it every night or something? I don't know. Is it a drug dealing spot? No lo sé. El especialito. Can't even get a newspaper in English here. So the reason I decided to come here is because about a decade before I was born, my father, my grandparents, basically my whole family line lived in this neighborhood. Not just this neighborhood, but this street, Sherman Avenue, in Uptown Manhattan. This is actually the first time I've ever come here. And I don't think these buildings have changed much in the last 50 years. My dad would tell me stories about running up and down these fire escapes. Kept pigeons. Well, except for one major change. You might be wondering, Tommy, why did your family live in a neighborhood full of Dominicans? Are you Dominican? And the answer is, well, no. As much as I love the Dominican Republic, I am not Dominican. No. The story is a classic New York story. This neighborhood used to be full of Irish and Jewish immigrants. So my dad and then my grandmother, actually right up to when I was born, lived in this building. Alright, I kind of just walked into this building uninvited, but this is what one of these old buildings looks like. Back in the day, I guess, the only foreign language you might have heard in here was maybe Italian. Now, of course, it's all Spanish. Caribbean Spanish. Which isn't to say that might not change again in the future. You have a sign offering free English classes funded by the City of New York. Doesn't seem like anybody's taking up the offer though. New York City as a whole, in the 70s and 80s, started to get a lot more dangerous. You had stuff like the crack epidemic going on. But in the 70s, according to family legend, my father and my great aunt decided to bounce when the local liquor shop owner around the block kind of got shot. The dude was armed. The dude got shot defending his own store and passed away. My grandmother kept living here well into the 80s. But on top of all the crime bullshit that she had to deal with, she also had a money-hungry landlord bearing down on her. Because of the rent-controlled status of her apartment, apparently she only had to pay $56 a month. Imagine that, to live in Manhattan. Because of how cheap that rent was, of course, the landlord was desperate to get her out. Because I don't fully understand how the system works, but you can apparently have both a rent-controlled apartment and a non-rent-controlled apartment in the same building. And if you can get the rent-controlled client out of the building, well, obviously, you can make a lot more money. And so, the old landlord decided to put pressure on my poor grandmother, shutting off the electricity, shutting off the water, really dickheaded stuff. Man, you could really see why people would want to move here. It's actually a really nice neighborhood. You got this beautiful park. You actually got a lot of green space. You're still on Manhattan. The rents are a bit lower than they are in downtown.
Yeah, it was someplace, nice place to live, man. That park right there, forget about it. It was Hill Park. In there, you go all the way up to the top of the overlook. Look down to the Hudson River, look over to the Palisades, down to the George Washington Bridge. Yeah. You got some view from the top of that park.
Just speaking with one of the older residents of the neighborhood who never left. He's around the same age as my dad. He was doing the whole thing where he was asking if I knew so-and-so, but it was my dad who lived there, not me. But he said I should go and check out the park up here. And I've heard something very interesting about that park as well. So let's go over there and I'll tell you. Apparently, the spot where the Native Americans sold the island of Manhattan to the Dutch is not too far from here. But how do we get to it? I heard it's on like a rock. They marked it on like a rock or something.
Towards the really open field. The salt marsh is going to be on this side.
Yeah.
Stay on the path that goes around the left. So
more or less straight?
Yeah, you're going to go straight into the park. And when you come to where the flagpole is, take the path that's heading downhill towards the big open field.
Sounds like quite the journey. I appreciate it. Bye-bye. Sounds like we're going on like a Legend of Zelda quest here. I remember maybe half of the directions that lady was telling me, but from what I understood, I gotta go left. Also, Google Maps exists, so. What the hell is a glacial pothole? You know what they mean by glacial potholes? You don't know what a glacial pothole is? No? Okay, thanks anyway. It sounds dangerous. It might be the rock over there. Shorak Kopoch. According to legend, on the site of the principal Manhattan Indian village, Peter Minuit in 1626 purchased Manhattan Island for trinkets and beads, then worth about 60 guilders. Can some Dutch person translate that, please? This boulder also marks the spot where a tulip tree grew to a height of 165 feet and a girth of 20 feet. Apparently they put this sign up in 1954, which makes sense, because I don't think anybody would describe a tree by its girth in today's day and age. I tend to think of something else with that. Going back even further in time, before all the immigrants started coming to New York City, New York didn't even speak English. New York was a Dutch colony. That's right. It was the Dutch who first came to New York, or the lands that became New York, and took over. Supposedly, the Dutch arrived here on the island of Manhattan. And there were some Native Americans already living here. Relations were, by all accounts, peaceful, and they worked out a deal to buy Manhattan for $24. That's right, $24. Apparently, even with inflation, that's only about $1,800. So the Dutch got quite the deal right there. Those Dutch, jullie zijn overal. They're everywhere. Suriname, Indonesia, even New York City. The Dutch controlled New York City. Isn't that crazy? Well, as cool and heartwarming as that story is, the only problem is it's probably not true. At least, most people doubt it. And if it did take place, historians actually think that it took place probably in lower Manhattan, near Wall Street or something like that. That cool looking bridge over there leads to the Bronx, a different borough. The Bronx is a Dutch word. I believe it was named after a Dutch general or a ship captain or somebody Dutch. And we've kept the name all the way till today. Imagine how it must have felt to be the Dutch back then in the 1600s, thinking you had just founded a new country, a new nation, a new colony. You were building a new civilization where everybody was going to speak Dutch. And then the English came in and gentrified everything. Most people don't think about the Dutch very often when they think of New York City. But there's one group that used to live here that nobody thinks of. Surprisingly, you could ask 9 out of 10 New Yorkers who are the Lenape, and they probably wouldn't know. The Lenape were the original Native American group that lived here on the island of Manhattan. There's a little sign over there that announces these are the Indian caves. According to my great aunt, even in the 1930s, there were actually Native American people living in this park. I don't know what happened to them, but they used to make money off of like tourists, showing the traditional lifestyle. They even had like a teepee there. I don't really know where I'm going at the moment. Just trying to get like a cool view. It's the first time I've ever gone rock climbing in New York City. Some dude sitting down there watching me climb up this thing like an idiot. Ooh. Reach the big rock. I didn't even know we had stuff like this in New York City. Wow. Let's take a breather right here. Man, just imagine. Forget being the Dutch. Imagine being the Lenape Native Americans and watching as everything you understood about the world radically changes. The Lenape are long gone. I'm sure there's still their descendants somewhere here in New York City, but they've mixed in the rest of the population. And there's no Lenape Pride Day. There's no Lenape celebrations. There's not even a museum dedicated to them. I think there's like a Native American museum or something, but it's like they've basically been erased. What is that over there? I think this is like some homeless dudes encampment or something. Hello? Anybody here? Can't tell if this place is still occupied or not. This is like some homeless dude's summer home or something. It's well hidden though. Fair play to you, Mr. Homeless. But with that said, I gotta say, I haven't seen too many syringes lying around here, which is nice. There's some broken glass. But I guess crackheads don't know how to climb mountains. Finally made it back to the path. Alright. I'm getting hungry. Let's get out of here. Coming.
That's
probably not important.
Whatever that is, we don't need it.
That's not mine. Oh wait, it was mine. Yeah. Oh, it's like my bar tab.
Your hand. JK.
What neighborhood is this? Is this the Lower East Side?
It's like Nolita.
It's like near Chinatown, I know. So I'm here in the Lower East Side. Just made some new friends at a bar, as you do.
Is this the time
What's
to
your name
say
again?
hi?
Chris.
Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, subscriber of the channel. Really good dude.
Love this guy. Best guy ever.
Your name again?
Yeah, what am I, chopped liver? I'm Libby.
Libby. We also have Libby here.
Libby from Brooklyn.
From Brooklyn. There you go. You can even hear it.
Yeah.
Where's the pizza at? Let's go find it.
They're lying to you.
Man, it's tough to travel the world, have mediocre pizza. Thankfully, I'm back in paradise.
The vodka slice. And the vodka margarita slice. They get mad about that.
That's photo worthy.
Alright. I've had enough drinks for this to be good no matter what.
Alright. These, I should ask you first.
Oh, okay. Got this and then.
That was delicious. I'm gonna throw out another very controversial opinion.
Let's hear it.
I think New York pizza is better than the pizza in Italy.
No, it's true.
Hey, exactly, right?
It's not
Like,
just the beginning. I think it's an established fact.
I'm not saying the pizza in Italy is bad, but it's like it came here and then it got on steroids. Yeah,
Just the
you can
crust.
take that home if you want.
No, not
Give
good.
it to some acidic person.
It's not kosher.
It's definitely not kosher.
I even felt a piece of
That
meat
is
earlier,
not
which
kosher.
is scandalous.
How is that? Wait, how is that not kosher?
So many ways it could be not kosher. First of all, the ingredients have to have a kosher certification. If it's cooked in the same
Kosher,
oven,
I feel like it's way more complex than halal.
oh, it is.
Halal
It
is just like you gotta cut the meat a certain way.
in fact, most observant Muslims eat kosher food, but it doesn't work in the reverse.
Okay.
It's much more restrictive.
Oh,
First of all,
you can't eat shellfish, right?
no shellfish. You got mixed milk.
What about
and-
cheese? How is that?
It has to be a kosher cheese. Some cheeses are.
Oh, so this is like fucked.
I think so.
You got some intense rules.
Oh yeah. And 630 rules.
That's a lot. All right, let's go. Gotta catch the last train back to Long Island. Let's try not to fall asleep. Takes almost an hour to get back. Alright. I am mildly intoxicated, which puts me in the perfect state of mind to wrap up this video about immigration. America. It's a country, in case you haven't heard, that was founded on immigration. It's a place that has quite a few flaws, and sometimes I'm ashamed of it. Other times, I'm extremely proud of it. It's a place that inspires a lot of mixed feelings in me. This is a pretty cool church. Forgot the name of it, some kind of cathedral. Got off at the Garden City station instead of the Hempstead one, because anybody who's from the local area will tell you, you don't get off in Hempstead at 2 o'clock in the morning. You don't do that. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, people around the world, they love America. Forget what you heard. America and its image is still going strong, in spite of some propaganda campaigns that we got going against us. And people are going to continue to dream of coming here. And being realistic, they're going to continue to come here. And it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter if it's Biden. It doesn't matter if it's Trump. Has immigration ever really stopped? And so it is what it is. People will keep coming. Most of them are just seeking a nice middle-class lifestyle. So, you know, there's no point in worrying about things you can't change. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm a little bit late to the immigration bandwagon, but as a New Yorker, I thought I can give my own unique touch. I don't have the super fast-paced editing of the Mr. Beast clones who have already dropped their videos, but hopefully this gave you just a bit more insight into the situation. I think we'll cut it here, and I should probably get out of this intersection. Making videos in America is a little more fun than I imagined. Maybe we'll do another one. See you next time. Hey, one more thing before you go. If you like what I'm doing and you like all the work that goes into making these videos, I'd really appreciate if you support me on Patreon. On Patreon, I put up some extra footage and videos that don't go on YouTube as a thank you. I make all these videos myself. There's no team, so the support really helps. With your help, this channel will just keep getting better and better. All right, see you next time. Get out of here.